Last week's episode with Lonnie was very rich. There were several moments during the interview and when listening back that I thought, this is something I want to write about. The importance of finding meaning and purpose in life when what has previously brought meaning is no longer available. When Lonnie talked about wanting to be remembered as someone that makes others feel like somebody. The idea of trying to make sure people feel seen. But something that really resonated with me, something that came up a lot in my work in the hospital, is the idea of pumping the brakes. When Lonnie got his diagnosis and was talking to his doctors about the prognosis and the treatment plan, he had the wherewithal to ask for some time. To their credit, it seems like his doctors were happy to give him the time he needed to make good, thoughtful decisions about his path. But so often I've seen people feel the need to make decisions on the spot. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, when a medical professional is sitting with you, giving you time and information, telling you about your options, and asking you what you want to do, it can seem like the polite thing to do is to give them an answer. But if ever there is a time to let go of good manners, I'd say this is it. Doctors will almost always give someone time to make decisions. Of course, many, especially specialists, have get-things-done personalities. But if it's brought to their attention that there might be a good reason to take a little time to think things through, they're likely to quickly see the wisdom in a pause. I've sat with probably hundreds of patients minutes or hours after getting a life-changing diagnosis. I know the look of panic in the eyes of patients who've been told they have an incurable cancer. And a surprising number of those patients have two things in common. One, they know what their treatment plan is. And two, they feel overwhelmed by the speed at which things are happening. I've always found it interesting that these patients had just learned about their illness and already had a plan. So many of them couldn't tell me exactly what their disease was. They couldn't tell me their prognosis. They didn't know anything about their chemo or immunotherapy. They had no idea what the treatment was going to do for them. But they did know they had a plan. Having a plan can certainly make a person feel some semblance of safety. But what I've found, more often than not, was that formulating the plan outpaced their emotional regulation. Despite having a plan, so many patients still felt a tremendous amount of fear and were so overwhelmed that they couldn't even comprehend or hold on to the information they were given, much less formulate intelligent questions. I would often mention that these things can feel like a runaway train, and more often than not, it resonated with the patient. The hospital admission, the suspicion, the biopsy, the diagnosis, the treatment options, and the start of treatment can all happen in a matter of days, from life as usual to struggling to survive a terminal diagnosis in less than a week. Each piece happening more quickly than the piece before. Some describe it as a snowball picking up speed as it heads down the hill. One patient described it as being plummeted by waves and dragged out into deep water. I remember one patient in particular, a lady in her mid-60s who had been diagnosed that day with aggressive metastatic cancer of some kind. By the time I went to visit her, she had already talked to the oncologist and made a decision to proceed with chemotherapy. We talked about her experience to this point, and I wondered if things might be feeling a little overwhelming. She said that she reckoned things were moving awful fast. She hadn't even told her family about the plan yet. They hadn't been able to make it to the hospital to talk with the oncologist. But, she told me, she needed to make a decision because she thought the cancer might run rampant if she didn't get started right away. I was a little surprised because I had never heard an oncologist say that to a patient, so I asked if the oncologist had told her that. She paused and said, well, no. I asked her if she thought she might feel less overwhelmed if her family were able to hear from the oncologist and think with her about her options. And she said, well, yeah. I'd seen her oncologist in the hallway before my visit, and I asked her if it would be okay if I got the oncologist to come hear her thoughts and see what he had to say about it, and she agreed, so I did. Of course the oncologist understood. He was happy to tell her that delaying a decision for a day would make no difference in her course, and that he would be happy to come at a time tomorrow when her family could be present for the discussion. Because most of the oncologists I've met are actual people who, when given the opportunity, want their patients to be comfortable with the treatment plan. Pumping the brakes. It's something I've suggested many times over the year, and it's something that comes natural to me because, as my wife likes to say, I'm a turtle in the world. Many of my patients and families of patients have appreciated being given the permission to slow down or even stop for a moment, or a day, or a few days to process and think things through. Working through the initial emotional reactions so that somebody can make a thoughtful, supported response is often helpful. And this goes for the rest of us too. Too often in life, I've had strong reactions to a situation and not taken the time to pump the brakes. For most of us, even the terminally ill among us, we have plenty of time. There's rarely a situation that requires me to make an emotionally distraught decision without taking time to think things through. In fact, I'm guessing we could all stand to take a little more time to pump the brakes before we respond. Things around us are moving fast, and it's easy to get caught up in the swirl, and before we know it, we're looking back and regretting things we said or did. I know I've quoted Viktor Frankl before, and he said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." We often have a choice about how big that space is. The bigger the space, the more likely we are to make decisions that are intentional, thoughtful, and aligned with our deeply held values. My encouragement to you this week is to pump the brakes. Take the time you need to ensure the things you say and do are not done out of anger or panic, but aligned with who you want to be. If you're a patient or the family member of a patient and you're feeling overwhelmed by the runaway train of diagnosis, take a moment. Gather yourself. If you're a person overwhelmed with the state of the world, the country, or your life, take a moment. Gather yourself. When met with difficulty, may we all take time, find the peaceful space between stimulus and response, and choose the response that is most aligned with who we are. Because I truly believe deep down, when we work through our fear and panic, we're all in this together, just trying to survive a sometimes scary world. Take a moment, gather yourself. Our lives and our world might depend on it. This is Dying to Tell You.